Hi, my name is Kaylin Saulnier, and before I begin, I just want to apologize. I'm very nervous, and some of the words I'm going to pronounce, I have a little trouble pronouncing them, but I'm going to do the best I can. So whenever this research paper came up, I knew exactly what I wanted to research because it was a strategy that I was already planning to use. You see, I'm a first-time special education teacher in a self-contained setting, and this is my second year of teaching, and we're going back to school, and it's not the same school that we left. It's the same school, but it's going to be different. It's this new normal, and the reason I decided to research this strategy was because my students, when they left the school that no one wore masks. Washing your hands. We washed our hands. We taught them how to wash hands. But it's different. They didn't have to stay 6 feet apart. They didn't have to wear masks. They didn't have to see other people wearing masks. Now, my students will not be wearing masks, but everyone else on campus will be. The other students and the other teachers. And let's be honest, those masks are pretty scary. So the strategy I decided to go ahead and research was the use of social stories to get students prepared for new experiences, such as this new normal. Social stories have been used for a long time in a wide variety of settings. One journal article I read is with adults in an adult care facility for people with autism. And what happened was, it was actually during this COVID-19 pandemic, they wanted to see the effects of the changes on their patients. So what happened was, whenever they started to allow patients to come back to the facility, they use social stories to kind of just, introduce, like, this is what's happening now. This is why you have less peers in your therapy group. This is why your therapist has a mask on or a shield. And they didn't have any they didn't know if it was directly related because they used different interventions to the social stories. But they found that the patients, once coming back, they just fell right back into the routine. And like the article said, like, it wasn't fully positive that it was the social stories, but they're pretty sure the social stories had an impact on it because it got the adults ready for what was to come. Which we know that people with autism often have trouble with change and new experiences, especially new social situations where they're not sure how to react. Social stories can introduce experiences to students before they actually have to encounter it on their own, so that they're able to prepare themselves. When they can engage with the character and have a connection with that character, then they are able to put themselves in that character's shoes. And whenever they go through it, they just repeat. It's a lot of repetition. They memorize the story and they repeat it to themselves so that they know how to react. Or with social skills, trying to teach a social skill to a student. They can't generalize skills like we can. They have a lot of trouble doing that. But using social skills allows them to see that skill. Social stories allows them to see the skill being used in different settings because you take pictures from those settings. Some of the articles I used in my research actually fell more into the category of what is a social story and how is it used and the best ways to use it. Many of the articles I've read actually paired social stories with another intervention. Some even compare the two. And what I've concluded from my research is that social stories alone can have a benefit to some students. However, we know with working with students that not every child is going to learn the same way and in the same day. So, yes, it may work for little Bobby, but it may not work for little Jimmy. And little Susie, it's a hit and miss. So, instead of just using social stories, many researchers have found that using two interventions, such as social stories and role playing, actually has a really positive effect on the students with autism, because it reinforces what the social story taught. Let me make sure I'm hitting this. So my thesis statement is that when teaching students with autism spectrum disorder, social stories can be used to assist in the teaching of social skills and how to react in certain social situations. Social stories can be used in both the special education and the general education setting. So, social stories is not something that can just be used in the special education setting. Yes, it is often used by special educators. However, counselors have also used social stories when teaching students about divorce or death or just different situations that they're going to experience in their lives or they may be experiencing. And it's used as a coping strategy. It shows the students that, okay, this is what's happening. This is what to be prepared for. And it's going to be okay. It can also be used in early childhood settings, in general education classrooms. Say you have a group of kids who just aren't understanding the concept of sharing toys. Easy. Give them a social story. Let them see how the characters learn to share the toys. Then role play. And be consistent. Just keep doing it with them and doing it with them again. And they will catch on. Or some of them will catch on. Maybe not all of them, but because not every intervention is going to work at every student. When creating a social story, one article I read actually mentioned having the student help create it. By doing this, the student is taking ownership of that social story, and he or she is able to engage more with it. Allow them to decide how the character is going to react. Will the character scream and have a meltdown? Or will the character say, okay, and walk away? So the reason my research is important is because I find social stories kind of get pushed on the back burner sometimes. At least in the general education setting. Because it's seen mostly as a special education thing, not as a education thing, just a special education thing, if you see what I did there. So allowing other educators to understand how social stories can be used in different settings could help with the changes going on in our world today, especially with this new normal and getting students ready to come back to school. Also being off for 5 months, that's a long time with a different routine. Social stories can be used to teach routines too. Social stories have been used in settings such as a self-contained classroom in Iran, where they had some male students and they used the social stories to teach them different social skills. That study concluded that the social stories did greatly impact the students. However, during that study, they also observed the students for a few days and created the social stories to go along with the skills that the specific students needed. So individualization is a great way to have an effective social story. You want the students to be able to actually understand it and be able to see, okay, this is for me. This is how I usually react, and this is what I have to do differently. Which brings me to another point. It can be used with functional behavior assessments. Students who have undergone a functional behavior assessment or a FBA and have a functional behavior, meaning the behavior can be changed. They're doing the behavior for a reason to get a certain consequence. Well, social stories can be used to decrease those undesired behaviors and increase the more desirable ones. So, in conclusion, I feel that social stories, although they aren't great for every child, and they do need to be repeated. They need to be repeated a lot. You can't just read it one time and expect the students to just snap into this new routine or this new change or this new skill. They have to be repeated. So reading them a few times during the week, allowing the students to read them if they're able to read on their own. If not, read it with them. Allow them to engage with it. Some other research studies I have looked at also included using iPads or technology, which we already know those students love technology. Allowing them to interact with it through technology has also shown to be a positive impact with social stories. Understand that it can be used in different settings can also assist with our students, because not only are our students with special needs getting the interventions, but the other students are too. So the other students are learning how to interact with our students. So that it's creating a more positive atmosphere for the students with autism. So they feel more welcomed, and it's just creating a learning environment. So the way I plan to implement this is I plan to use both social stories and role-playing activities in order to engage my students in the social stories and the skills being taught. Or in my case, is the new situation, how to react when seeing someone in a mask. Okay, so thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you have a great day. Bye.